Hi, this is Billie Jean King.
This is Marion Bartoli.
This is Bianca Andreescu.
I'm Mats Wilander.
This is Mary Carrillo.
This is Pam Shriver.
This is Yannick Noah, and you're listening to the Tennis Podcast.
Well, hello and welcome to the Tennis Podcast on day 4 of Roland Garros. The seemingly interminable and definitely confusing round 1 has finally drawn to a close, and we are knee-deep in round 2 as we come to you at around about 9 p.m. here in our usual spot, being overlooked by Court Philippe Chatrier, where Holger Rune and Emilio Nava are currently headlining the night session. David, yesterday was our birthday. Happy birthday to us. Now, I did know this yesterday because we have Vicky now, and Vicky very helpfully reminds us of these things and puts fun pictures of Billie Jean wearing happy birthday paraphernalia in our agenda so that we don't forget our birthday. So it's not a case of forgetting, but it just felt fitting to still celebrate the day after, because that's what we do.
If we'd have got it right, it would have been wrong. So we're teenagers. Finally.
Yes, 13 years old yesterday is the Tennis Podcast. Although, did the Tennis Podcast really start until Matt Roberts came on board?
No.
Who can say?
It did. I used to listen on the bus. I can confirm there were episodes.
Just don't go back and listen to them.
What were you doing in 2012, Matt?
I was at school. I was doing my GCSEs.
If you didn't know, Matt is disgustingly young, but he keeps us in touch with Gen Z, so it's very useful to have him around. Speaking of Gen Z, should we start with Iga Swiatek and Emma Raducanu? This was the headline women's match of the day session, third on Chatrier today, and let's not beat around the bush here. It was a beatdown for Iga Swiatek, the second slam in a row that she's had a very one-sided scoreline against Emma Raducanu. Couple more games today for Raducanu, 1 and 2, whereas it was 1 in love, wasn't it, in Melbourne. Look, Iga Swiatek produces her best against Emma Raducanu. I think a lot of people suspect that there is a bit of needle there, not necessarily two-way needle, but that Iga Swiatek is, for whatever reason, particularly ruthless and dialed in and motivated against Emma Raducanu. It certainly doesn't feel like there's an awful lot of warmth there, but one thing is for sure, she produces her best tennis against Emma Raducanu, and it was pretty fantastic today from Swiatek, and in Emma Raducanu's own words, David, she was badly exposed.
Yeah, it was actually a very good self-analysis by Raducanu, who I think took that defeat, not that there's no disgrace in losing to Iga Swiatek on Court Philippe Chatrier, but I think the manner of it was probably a bit of a shock to her system, because she's been playing pretty well in the last couple of months and feeling like she's made progress on her forehand and her serve, and you know, she has pushed Swiatek close in a set on clay in Stuttgart a couple of years ago, but exposed is exactly what she was. We actually saw Iga Swiatek Roland Garros edition, I felt, today. That doesn't mean we're going to see it every round. I think until she wins this thing, she's got it to prove based on the last couple of months, the way things have gone. Certainly not historically, you know, she's won this thing 4 times before, but wow, that was her reminding everybody just how good she is on the surface in this tournament.
Yeah, she was absolutely awesome, and we will talk about her a little more. Emma Raducanu in this matchup, she's just totally unable to take the ball early, isn't she? Which is, you know, her trademark game. Something about the Iga Swiatek ball just pushes her back and discombobulates her, and I think it's really in her head at this point, and she looked underpowered against the Iga Swiatek. The weight of shot, the difference in weight of shot was so stark, wasn't it?
And she talked about the stage itself, the court that she was on, the stadium that she was in. She hadn't played it before. I really hadn't considered that would be a factor at all, because this is a woman who won the US Open on the Arthur Ashe Stadium court, the biggest stadium in tennis. She's played on centre court at Wimbledon. She's played the Rod Laver Arena. This is the first time in any of those tournaments that has appeared to be a problem. And I think, obviously, it's magnified because of who she's up against. And that's the main issue here. Swiatek's footwork was like watching Roadrunner, just a sort of cloud of dust, and she's everywhere. And that has been something that really hasn't been the case when she's been struggling of late, and she talked to us about that in the press conference, which we'll get onto. But yeah, I think it was a shock to the system for Raducanu. I think she goes out there, she has a plan, she has a sort of thought about how it's going to go, optimistic, and then next thing you know, it's all going wrong.
Yeah, it was your proverbial punch on the nose, wasn't it?
Yes.
Everyone's got a plan till they get punched on the nose, and that is absolutely what Swiatek delivered today. It was an interesting Swiatek press conference, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, I mean, she is no doubt playing better than we've seen for a long time, and more convincingly and with more conviction in everything she's doing than we've seen for a long time. And I'm quite sure that's the Roland Garros effect. This is where Swiatek plays her best tennis, and this does look like something close to her best tennis. I'm still not convinced her mental state is actually that different to what we've seen of late. I still think there is a frailty there that will be exposed if she's put under sufficient pressure. She might not be over the course of this tournament. It just depends how the draw unfolds and who she ends up facing. But I still am not convinced she's in a really different headspace just because she's at Roland Garros. She doesn't enjoy questions about her form, and look, nobody enjoys being asked about their failings and shortcomings, do they? But there's almost an attitude of, well, that's all sort of in your heads, the media, all of these bad results that I've been having. That's just you needing something to write about. She talked about how she felt that a lack of energy was to blame. These are her words. She said it a couple of times in that press conference, that during those losses, and I think she said it pre-tournament, didn't she, Matt? You picked up on it. She said in a few of those losses she felt she was lacking in energy, and I thought, that's really odd for Iga Swiatek to be saying that. So I asked whether that's something she's ever experienced before, and she sort of said, well, no, I didn't lack energy. That's not what I was saying.
Positive energy she felt she lacked, and I actually think that feeds into, and I realise I'm only giving an amateur analysis of this, but I've always felt, whenever I've watched her, whenever I've spoken to her, here is somebody who is tightly wound up and on the edge. And usually being on the edge means she plays to the absolute extreme of her powers, and it is impossible to beat on this court. But if you just go over the edge, which I think she's been doing of late, then it can all just collapse like a pack of cards. And I felt it was fascinating when she described how after what happened in Rome, she had to go away and really look at her game and change things. And stop trying to do a million different things. She said, you remember when I said she was serving in Rome, and then the return would come back, she wouldn't move. And she actually acknowledged that in the press conference today. She said, you probably saw, I would sometimes not even run after the ball. And it's because it sounded like she was almost paralysed by all the thoughts going through her head.
She said she was devoting too much energy to being in her head about what she was doing wrong, dwelling about the things that she was doing wrong. And I followed up and said, have you felt that before? And if so, when? And she said, yeah, of course I felt it before. It's just I never had this much scrutiny on me before.
In her career,
she's really fixated on the amount of attention that she perceives that we the media and people around her are giving to this relatively poor run of form that she's been on. And it reminded me, I mean, she handles it with a heavier touch than Coco Gauff did, for sure, a couple of years ago. But it reminded me of Coco Gauff here a couple of years ago when she was receiving a lot of questions about her forehand. And even one from Mary Carrillo in a press conference, a beautifully, elegantly, brilliantly phrased question in the press conference about her forehand. And she was, in a very elegant way and a very charming way, she was pretty defensive about it, wasn't she? She was like, so you guys that are all talking about my forehand, that's a you thing. I don't have a problem with my forehand. And we know she is aware that there are certainly have been technical kinks in her forehand, and it's just all symptomatic of those mental gymnastics that these top level athletes are performing all the time. You know, those are the demands of the sport. She's got Jacqueline Christian next, has Iga Swiatek, who is in my fantasy team, so I can't be trusted to be objective about this, but you'd think that Iga Swiatek could be fine with that, Matt. Even though it was you that told me Christian is good, get her in your fantasy team.
Yeah, I've always kind of rated Christian, but not to the level that she's going to beat Iga Swiatek at Roland Garros, I don't think. I think, as we perhaps suspected, the draw that we thought was so tough for Iga Swiatek in the first 3 rounds actually probably hasn't worked out that way. I mean, Shramkova tested her, Raducanu, she likes the matchup as you've just described there, and this is now Christian rather than Kostyuk, who was probably the seeded player there for Swiatek. So things in that sense have gone well for Iga Swiatek. In another sense, less well, because the real nightmare in the draw remains in the draw. And it just feels very Iga Swiatek in 2025, when she's not having her best season, that for once Jelena Ostapenko actually seems to be not only in her section at Roland Garros, but winning matches. She's only reached the 3rd round at Roland Garros twice, has Jelena Ostapenko. Once was when she won the tournament, and once was COVID year. Like, outside of those times,
that all figures.
She's actually lost incredibly early, regularly at this tournament.
I'm telling you, it's the carrot.
She must know, and she is doing everything in her power to get there.
She did look utterly delighted after winning today.
She was a set down to Caroline Dollarhide, and alarm bells rung for all of us when we saw that scoreline. So we went out there, didn't we, to say, Jelena, we've been promised a 4th round between you and Iga Swiatek. I think you want this as well. Sort it out. And she very much did. 5-7, 6-3, 6-3. Bit of aggro in that third set?
Yes. The first point I saw of this match live was Ostapenko with a short ball, and she hit it straight at Dollarhide at the net. But Dollarhide, to her credit, hit an incredible reflex volley winner, and they both stared at each other.
Whoa!
Actual stare down between the two of them. And then in the next point, Ostapenko needed about 3 or 4 winners. Dollarhide just kept retrieving. Eventually she hit the winner, and she let out a huge roar in Dollarhide's direction. It was like, for me, joining the match at that point, it was like the opening scene of a film being great. I was like, oh, I'm into this now. Like, we've had aggro and quality in the first 2 points. Actually, from there, the rest of the match wasn't all that compelling, because frankly, Ostapenko was playing well at that stage. She was really on top of the match, and she had far too much game for Dollarhide.
There was a cordial handshake. It was all actually quite disappointing.
It was a shame. Yeah.
Look, I didn't see the first set of this match. I saw a lot of the subsequent 2 sets, and I thought Ostapenko was playing really well.
Yeah, that was my feeling too.
Now, obviously, something different happened in the first set, but yeah. Iga Swiatek, watch out. P.S., by the way, Ostapenko plays Jelena Ostapenko next.
Yeah.
That is not a given at all that Ostapenko comes through that, no matter how well she's playing. But P.P.S., I don't think Swiatek particularly wants to play Ostapenko either.
I think Raducanu is the favourite in that match. She's won the last 3 of the matches they've played, and one of them was on clay in Rome. And she won that comfortably. I realise Raducanu's maybe not playing as well as she has in the past. I think that's pretty clear, but she did win a tournament coming in, and I know I would make her the favourite.
In any of those 3 matches, though, did Ostapenko know she had Iga Swiatek waiting on the other side?
Very good point.
The Ostapenko serve into the Raducanu return strikes me as a problem for Ostapenko in that matchup. Like, I can imagine Raducanu getting on top of that. But yeah, you're right. Like, Swiatek doesn't love playing Raducanu either, but she would sign for Jelena Ostapenko right now in the 4th round.
She'd sign for Carlos Alcaraz. I will sign for nothing other than Swiatek Ostapenko. Look, Christian is in my fantasy team. Get out the way, Jacqueline. Get out the way, Elena. You know what to do for the greater good of tennis. Folks, Amanda Anisimova was the first winner of today, Love and 2, over former backhand list member Victoria Golubic. Matt, you were there, obviously, as were Tennis Podcast fans hoping to bump into Matt.
Yep, and I met Marion and Emily. Very nice indeed. Lovely chats with them both. And yeah, very comfortable win, to be honest, for Anisimova. Double figures forehand winners in this match for her. Loads of backhand winners as well. She's got such a greater weight of shots than Golubic. It was entirely on her racket, and she was impressive. There was a downpour of rain towards the start of the second set, sort of midway through it, and you could see the look on Anisimova's face, being like, I do not want a rain delay. I'm going to get on with this match. And she just surged to the finish through that rain. And it's pretty big, because her record in slams hasn't been very good, actually, over the last year. She hadn't actually reached the third round of a slam since last year's Australian Open. She'd done a full cycle of the slams, not getting beyond round 2. When you consider in that time she's won a 1,000 title and reached another final, her slam results haven't been anywhere close to her tour results. So look, only the third round. I still think she can go further in this tournament, but good to at least get there. And she now faces Clara Towson. So we've got another... Well, I was going to say another David versus Matt, but I don't like being associated with Nicholas Jarry anymore.
And I also think David has dropped Clara Towson like a bit of a hot potato.
Well, she's got some making up to do, put it that way.
She almost failed to beat Arantxa Rus today, so I'm backing Amanda.
It was 2 tight sets, wasn't it? Yeah, and it's an interesting part of the draw, because the winner of that probably would face Aryna Sabalenka, and Towson has a win over Sabalenka this year, and Anisimova has several wins over Sabalenka over many years. So either player, I think, would be potentially dangerous for Sabalenka, albeit Sabalenka had a slow start today, but then went on and absolutely crushed Jill Teichmann, and she seems to be in good form.
Sabalenka had an outing on Lenglen today, and there was a sort of just a ripple of curiosity that spread like a post-nuclear blast fallout situation when around the surroundings of Lenglen, when Sabalenka went 3-1 down, 3-1 and a break down in the opening set to Jill Teichmann, David's former rising predicted shooting star.
Several years ago. Same year as Donna Vekic, though, and that worked out. So, make sure we get...
To be fair, I am confused by what has happened to Jill Teichmann. I have such a vivid memory of watching her here on Mathieu against Azarenka in an incredible match.
And absolutely vital team member for Switzerland, helping them in the Billie Jean King Cup.
She's been deep in the wilderness, and I thought 3-1 against Sabalenka, she's back. She's shooting finally, David. She lost 11 of the next 12 games, and Sabalenka, it's only one breadstick today. It wasn't quite as one-sided as the opening rounds, but these are serious statement scorelines for Aryna Sabalenka, and those do tend to be a harbinger of success later in the tournament. She's got Olga Danilovic next, though, has Sabalenka. David and I went out to try and catch what we thought might be a deciding set tiebreak of her match against Danielle Collins, a rematch of their match here last year that Danilovic also won. We missed, there was no deciding set tiebreak. We watched match point and the handshake, and I really feel like I know everything I need to know about that match from what we glimpsed.
Yes, a drag-out affair of a rally that we watched court level. We got these wonderful little areas that we can go into with our press badge that is right next to the line umpire in the corner of the court, and so we're watching diagonally as Daniel Collins at our near end is trading ground strokes, trying to stay in the match. Suddenly she then hits a drop shot, brings in Danilovic, who does extremely well to get to the ball. Ball goes to Collins in a way that she can literally just only pop it over the net, and then it's knocked away for a winner. And then raucous celebration from Danilovic to the sky and straight over to her team, whilst Collins shook hands with the umpire before shaking hands with her opponent. And then there was a big stare between the two of them as they shook hands. It was kind of like, I am making eye contact with you, I'm really making eye contact with you, and and then a sit down. So yeah, I think it's kind of game meets game with those two, because they're both so intense and great competitors. And you got to hand it to Danilovic. It takes some doing to stop Collins twice at a Grand Slam like that.
And look, I don't think Danilovic has the game to beat Aryna Sabalenka in this kind of form, and I don't think it'll be a great matchup. But I do think she'll walk onto that court with belief. Like, Olga Danilovic backs herself, doesn't she? And that's not nothing in these, that'll probably be on Chapter. Talking about Emma Raducanu today, someone that's won a slam and, who struggled a bit with that adjustment. I think Danilovic will just be like, yep, born to be on this stage.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? I mean, I kind of feel like maybe she would benefit from it being more like today. Getting her on her own turf in a way. And
it'll probably be one of the first two matches on Chapter, and the atmosphere won't be what it could be.
It's cavernous, isn't it, when it's like that? But yeah, she is a big stage player as well. We've seen her win big matches here last year, but ultimately you just got two players who've just got different levels of game, and if Sabalenka plays well, I don't see her having a problem.
Same is the case for Zheng Qinwen. Earlier she beat Emilia Arango, the Colombian player, 6-2, 6-3. She actually hung with Zheng pretty damn well, I thought, in this match, despite the fact that this looked like two different weight classes on court. Like, it looked almost cruel seeing them line up next to one another at the net. And Zheng now plays Victoria Mboko.
Wow.
The Canadian 18-year-old that we've been hearing so much about and going out of our way to watch. She beat Evelise today 4-4, and it was dismissive tennis. It was just, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm doing this. Boom, backhand down the line. Like, it's fuck off tennis, isn't it? Victoria Mboko, she's just awesome.
Yeah, she lets you have her power. It's simple as that. I do wonder whether she's going to hit the wall a bit.
She did seem exhausted at the end of this match, and like, why wouldn't she be? She's never played this much tennis before. She's done a lot of winning this year. Matt Futterman has done a piece with her in The Athletic recently, and I think this will be, at all levels, her 43rd win of the year. So, she's played a lot of tennis. The demands of having this success at a slam, will be greater than she's ever experienced before. I got the chance to speak to her today just for a few minutes. That'll be on a special episode coming for friends that we'll tell you more about later in the show. And she was an absolute delight, and I felt like I learned a lot about her, and I hope that the listeners feel the same when they hear that. But I did also get the feeling she was extremely tired, and yeah, very understandably so. And yeah, I'm still allowing myself to be hyped for that match.
Yeah, it sounds good, doesn't it? Zheng against Mboko, like the excitement that Mboko's bringing to this tournament. I still feel like Zheng's a bit of a unknown as well, because we know how high the ceiling is. We've seen her win the gold medal on this court, but slams are different to the Olympics, and so I just don't really know quite what to expect from her either. So I'm absolutely fascinated by that match. She's got real presence, Mboko. I went out to watch the final few games of this match and was struck by that. You're just drawn to her. She's got an exciting game. There's a lot of support. There's a lot of Canadian fans out there cheering for her, And this run of form she's had is now enough to take her up into the top 100 in the live rankings, which means that it's Mira Andreeva as an 18 and under, and it's Victoria Mboko as an 18 and under in the top 100 now. You know, that is it. So, yeah, great that she's had this run. But yeah, Matt Futterman, who's obviously, you know, spent more time with Mboko and been to more of her press than we have, said the same thing that you said. You know, she seemed a bit tired in that press conference today compared to other experiences that he's had. So, look, perhaps we should keep our expectations in check going into that one. But
when have I ever got carried away?
But still, I still am excited about it.
Jasmine Paolini opened Chatrier today, 3-3 for her against Tomljanovic. Very comfortable indeed as she faces Yulia Dubtseva next of Ukraine. I don't know if you've seen the Tennis Channel put out these. David, do you know what smizing is?
No.
Help a guy out, Matt.
I'm sure I know what smizing is.
Oh, I feel good.
It's the staring into your soul thing. Tennis Channel have been doing
yes.
this.
Okay, yeah. Oh, I don't like those videos.
Well, there's more of them. It's like this is another very Gen Z thing. Although Matt doesn't know about it. I've just introduced you as the guy that keeps us in touch with Gen Z, Matt.
Which I would have questioned, but didn't want to interrupt your flow.
What am I then?
Look, smizing. it's this like there's slow motion videos where the player, where you're asked to like look up at the camera as if you're staring into someone's soul. Matt doesn't like them. I quite like these videos anyway, and they're supposed to be sort of, you know, sultry and soulful and just a little bit suggestive. Jasmine Paolini just grinned. Just
excellent.
Even in super slow-mo, she's just doing this enormous grin.
Good.
It's absolutely incredible. And it's worth checking out, I would say, just for Jelena Ostapenko's. I don't think there's a word for the expression that she's pulling, but it's not staring into anyone's soul. So there you go. That's my Jasmine Paolini assessment. Last women's result to mention: Donna Vekic lost a heartbreaker today, and we watched the latter stages of this to Bernarda Pera in a deciding set tiebreak, who was pretty darn good. I'd forgotten how good Bernarda Pera can be, quite frankly, and she'll be the next opponent for Elina Svitolina. But she's searching at the moment, Donna Vekic, isn't she?
Yeah, and I think this is one of those things that can happen after having a really landmark year. Not a breakthrough year because she's latter 20s now, but last year was her best ever year. Wimbledon semi-finals, Olympic silver medal, big results, you know, felt like a top player. And I think we're seeing it with Taylor Fritz as well. You know, it's a real downer when you can't reproduce it for whatever reason. I mean, I realise there's still 2 more Grand Slams to come in close succession, and Donna Vekic has a game that should do well on those surfaces, but it's not happening at the moment.
Yep, we wish her well. I think she's going to play a very full grass court season, isn't she? Possibly 3 build-up events and Wimbledon. So good luck to her there. That is it for part 1. We'll be back in part 2 to talk about the men. Welcome back to part 2 of the tennis podcast, where we turn our attention to the men and Carlos Alcaraz, who has had a haircut.
Has he ever?
And it's the talk of the town. A mid-Grand Slam, quite severe haircut. Ever seen that before, David?
Yes, I have.
A significant change of style mid-slam.
Yeah, I've seen it before, but I still... It's
Who?
Well, I can't think off the top of my head, but I've definitely seen it. But his is extreme. I mean, he's had some of the haircuts my son has, you know, or talks about ad nauseum, and it's severe at the back, and then it's fluffy on top. But anyway, he needed it.
And that's what he said in his press conference.
Yeah.
He said, "You saw me in the first match. I needed a haircut, so I flew my barber in."
He what?
Yeah.
Victor.
Flew him in. He said he got to watch some tennis, did my hair, now he's going home.
Okay.
What a life Victor is living. What do you think he does in between cutting Carlos Alcaraz's hair? Because I don't think he needs any other clients.
What is
by the
charge?
sounds of
Oh, I
things.
think he has them, though.
Yeah?
Mm.
How much do you think he charges for an Alcaraz to the plebs?
Well, based on that haircut, not much.
I could give him one of those haircuts.
Okay, how was his tennis? 6-1,
Well-
4-6, 6-1, 6-2 against Fabian Marozsan.
Yeah, and staggeringly good in the first set. Like, so good. I think we were all a little bit worried about this match for Carlos Alcaraz, given Marozsan, he's a dangerous player, he's beaten him before, the roof was on. Like, there were lots of reasons why this could have been tricky for Alcaraz, and he was just absolutely awesome. Jumped all over the Marozsan game, had it all going on, but looked completely locked in to me. I just felt totally secure in him.
The perfect balance of locked in and loose.
Yeah. Then David arrived on Chatrier. We'd been texting the group. Oh, David, you got to get up here. It's 12 slams in a row, Alcaraz.
I wrote, in my agenda reads, 12 slams in a row, Alcaraz, brackets, he lost serve moments after I typed this with 4 unforced errors and a collision with a line judge.
True.
I think it was the collision with the line judge, not me, that was the problem. I think that cost him his concentration.
And he went off at the start of that second set. Marozsan improved, I have to say that as well. But it wasn't all bad for that set from Alcaraz. He had chances to get back into it late in the set and didn't take them. But then actually he was excellent after that again. He played a really good third set. Broke at the start of the fourth, got broken back, but immediately broke again. Like he was really good in this match. For me, the level of concern never tipped into even the orange, really. Certainly not the red. I always thought he was going to win this once I saw how good he was in those first few games. There was that lapse at the start of the second set. I'm not exactly sure what caused it, but overall, I thought Alcaraz was impressive today.
It felt like that lapse was like very hermetically sealed, didn't it? Like, okay,
Yes.
you went on to lose that set, but he wasn't terrible in the rest of it. He just wasn't able to retrieve the break. Like, it didn't infect the rest of his game. Like, everything else was still basically excellent. The sets that he won were 1-1 and 2.
Right, yeah. And he hit 2 around the net post shots. One was absolutely staggering with a slice backhand at full stretch, and it just went like an arrow round the net, and Marozsan stared at him. Greg Allensworth in the chair looked at him, and Alcaraz just stood there, smiled, and then put his arms out. Because I think people weren't quite sure whether it was in or out. So there wasn't this incredible sort of noise that should have greeted the shot. But then he put his arms up, smiled, and Chatrier just rose to applaud a very, very special shot. Yeah, he was on good form today, Alcaraz.
You love it when Greg Allensworth has a cameo in a tennis moment.
Especially an Alcaraz moment.
Yep.
He has Demir Dzumhur next, is Carlos Alcaraz, who beat Giovanni Pesci-Pericard on Lenglen earlier. He's 33 years old, is Dzumhur. Honestly, I thought he retired. He disappeared from the scene completely for a while. Today, not only is he withstanding the Lenglen crowd and the Giovanni Pesci-Pericard fight back, which was really gathering a head of steam, he tripped and collapsed in pain in the fourth set. The court went eerily quiet. It looked like he wasn't going to be able to continue. The trainer comes out. He'd basically just bashed his knee really badly, and the trainer kind of assured him, like, it's just a bruise. This isn't anything serious. It's just really painful. So if you can play through that, and obviously bosh down some painkillers, then you'll be all right. And he came up and he broke serve and ended up closing out the match. So tough as nails is Demir Dzumhur.
Like David yesterday, getting back to the Airbnb and getting a bruise when all the beers fell out the fridge, and then doing a great podcast.
David got attacked by a beer. I am not good at stacking the fridge. I'm never allowed to do that again. Demir Dzumhur played Carlos Alcaraz in a challenger final in 2019. Jumho was
19.
was close to his peak, and Alcaraz was 17, and Alcaraz won. So thoughts and prayers with Demir in a couple of days' time. There was another clinical dissection from Lorenzo Musetti against Daniel Galan, 6-4, 6-love, 6-4. It's great to see Musetti just being in the category of player that you feel so confident is going to perform and bring it and win the matches that he's supposed to win, because this is quite new for Musetti. We shouldn't forget that.
Yeah, he's playing kind of contender type tennis at the moment, because you have to navigate these rounds. You can't win the tournament in the first couple of rounds, but my word, you can get yourself knocked out or completely exhaust yourself by ending up in unnecessary 5-set matches. See Tommy Paul. I mean, he may well sort himself out and do better, but Musetti doesn't need that. He needs to be fresh when he ends up facing the better players. And I like the way he's packaging his game and his career right now. He's getting the most out of it. And where it takes him, I don't know, because I still think there's just that couple of players that are too good for him, really, in Sinner and Alcaraz, and you'd have to put Djokovic still in there, I think. But you can only do what you're asked to do in these couple of rounds, and he's doing it very well.
And look, we're about to talk about case studies of extremely good players who, for various different reasons, haven't been able to do today what's been put in front of them. Casper Ruud losing out to Nuno Borges, and afterwards we'll talk about Stefanos Tsitsipas and his loss to Matteo Gigante. Ruud, now this is an injury situation, and it became very clear that it was an injury situation. He's a set and a break up on Nuno Borges, gets broken back, and suddenly the match just starts falling away from him, and he ends up losing in 4 sets. He says it's nothing serious, he doesn't think, but he's been struggling with knee pain throughout this clay court season, all the way back to Monte Carlo. He says that's why he pulled out of Geneva last week. Said he's been okay in practice, but you can hold back in practice, and he actually gave us a lot of detail about exactly what's been going on. First felt it at Monte Carlo, had a scan in Madrid, no structural damage, just fluid and inflammation. He said it most badly affects his open stance backhand. It's when he's sliding on the left foot that he feels the pain the most. And look, he described the tour as a rat race, didn't he? And the feeling of what we were talking about over our preview weekend, of like you're on a hamster wheel, and if you get off it, then you're not standing still, you're losing ground by taking a break, even a break that you might feel is necessary. And I think everybody in the room is really with him on that, weren't they? He talking about the rat race of tennis and how long and punishing the season is, and then he started talking about missing out on ATP financial bonuses. And he sort of lost the room in that moment, didn't he?
He certainly lost me at that point. I got a lot of time for Casper Ruud. I think he's a straight talker. I enjoy listening to him. I think he's having a really impressive career overall. He's done more than I thought he would. And look, logically speaking, he has a point and a case that the tour does incentivise you to play the mandatory big events, and if you don't play them, you lose out financially. In this bonus pool at the end of the year, it starts ratcheting down. If you start missing events, you basically don't get the same percentage that you would do if you played them all, right, Catherine?
Yeah, this is basically an ATP scheme to elevate the Masters 1000 event. So it's a $21 million bonus pool allocated on the basis of performances exclusively at the 9 Masters 1000 events, and there's a little sub bonus pool of 3 million for performances at the 500 events. But basically the big money is in the Masters 1000 bonus pool, and it's the top 30 performers exclusively at those 9 events that the money is divided up between, and it's a very, very complicated division system. There's a fixed bonus. Basically the top finishing player, the top performing player at those 9 events gets $3.8 million extra, a $3.8 million bonus, plus a variable bonus which amounts to about $160 per ranking point earned at a Masters 1000 event. But then those are your sort of base figures, they can be cut according to how many of those events you've played in. Now, Casper Ruud said in his press conference today that if you miss one, you get a 25% cut to your bonus pool pot. Now, that's not actually true. It's if you miss two that you only get 75% of your total bonus pool. You can miss one and still get the 100%. But yeah, it was a tough sell, wasn't it?
I think the point is, this is a guy who's won $23 million in prize money so far. He's in his 20s. He's doing just fine. And he's going to continue to do just fine. He looks like a racing car driver, the number of sponsors he's got plastered all over his shirt. Good for him. I've got no problem with it whatsoever. I hope he makes a fortune. But your priority, I believe, Casper, should be making sure you are absolutely in tip-top condition for the Grand Slams, and for this one in particular, because it's your best chance of ever winning one. And I realise you can't control everything, but you should not have in the back of your mind, in my opinion,
the ATP
the bonus pool, and whether you should play Madrid and Rome and risk making an injury worse because you don't want to be penalised in that bonus pool. You've got that the wrong way around.
Well, all signs point to him skipping the Grass altogether, don't they? It sounds like he needs at the very least a break, possibly a procedure, I don't know. And yeah, I know he's talked in the past about having big designs on improving on grass. I personally think that's going to be shelved for 2025. We lost Stefanos Tsitsipas today. A huge upset, really. He lost to the qualifier, the Italian qualifier. I mean, Italy have just got these players coming out of their ears. The Italian press pack that sit behind us just don't know what to do with themselves. It's just talk about flat out. Gigante 6-4, 5-7, 6-2, 6-4 against they look harassed, don't they? Against the former finalists here. Matt, you were out there for the latter stages of this.
I was, yeah, and definitely want to give a lot of credit here to Matteo Gigante, who was a name I'd seen in some draws. I'll be honest, I'd never actually watched him play before today. And, well, what an error I've been making, because what a lovely game he's got. He's a lefty. He's listed as 1.80 metre on the ATP website. He does not look that tall. You know, he's immediately striking as, despite his name, looking quite small and slight. And yet he's got this compact backhand, two-handed backhand, heavy topspin forehand, and just a clever player, a very cunning player. Really took advantage of the Tsitsipas weaknesses that we talk about. You know, exposed the court position by coming up with some wonderful drop shots. Tsitsipas, you know, he had a safe zone to serve on the ad side out wide to the Tsitsipas backhand, but in the last two serves he hit in the match, he went down the tee. Tsitsipas was expecting it to the backhand. He mixed it up and he hit two aces down the tee in his last two serves on that ad side to win him the match. And Tsitsipas was pressuring a little bit down that final stage of that fourth set. He had a lot of break points. A mixture of Tsitsipas not bringing it on those points and Matteo Gigante standing up to him and playing brilliant tennis. It was like he was reading the Tsitsipas game really, really well. I was really impressed with him. He was a really fun time. But you know, obviously the big story here is Tsitsipas losing, and there's just a lot going on, isn't there? Look, his dad is back in the box,
and as demonstrative
as ever. Yeah.
It all just looks so, you know, it could be 5 years ago, couldn't it? Except he's losing.
Yeah. He's back with his Wilson Blade frame, the one that he moved away from earlier in the season.
Which was Matt's spot, by the way.
Yes, and then Matt Futterman asked him in the press conference. I was watching this match with Matt Futterman. Matt Roberts, is so eagle-eyed about rackets, isn't he?
Yeah, you can't get anything past
Matt is a racket nerd.
I know a Wilson Blade when I see one. Yeah, it was his old racket. He'd been using the new racket blacked out through the clay, which is why it caught my eye, because I thought he was still using it. But he said he wanted to go back to what feels comfortable and what he knows best, considering that he hasn't been having the results that he was expecting on the clay with the other racket. And look, so that's a factor. Just generally, his record against left-handers is very, very poor. He's lost 8 of his last 11 now against left-handers, and we're not talking about Nadal there in terms of that lineup of left-handers. You know, it's Gigante, Draper, Montero, Shapovalov, Humbert, Molcan, Stricker.
It's the backhand, isn't it? They can exploit the backhand.
Their angle of attack is into the Tsitsipas backhand, and you know, even if he makes the backhand, it's very often dropping short, and that's what Gigante was taking advantage of. So yeah, all of these factors plus some others that Tsitsipas talked about in his press conference.
Yeah, it was a sad press conference, wasn't it? It was pretty bleak. Talk about a lost soul. But I thought that line that you actually read out, where he was talking about his racket, I found that tremendously revealing. I'm trying to go back to what feels comfortable to me and what I know best. I mean, that's what he's doing in all aspects, isn't it? He's gone back to everything he used to have. And look, I think everybody on a human level can understand that instinct to retreat when things are hard, when you're trying to chart new territory, when you're having to trust the process, you know, even if the process isn't delivering results. That's why this stuff is hard, and that's why it makes champions. And I totally understand on a human level why that is his instinct, but I think it's also causing his results to retreat. Quite frankly, he said things have definitely changed over the last couple of years, and I know that I find myself in a completely different position now. I just need to use my experience a little bit more wisely. My experience sometimes stabs me.
Yeah.
I mean, he has described scar tissue there, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has, and he said he felt he played immature tennis at times today. He did give huge credit to his opponent, by the way. He repeatedly wanted to go back to do that, to make sure he didn't seem like he was being any sort of bad loser, and I think he genuinely meant it. I think he was impressed with his opponent.
Oh, it was a great press conference.
Yeah, it was. But
it was sad, but
the racket
very
stuff,
giving.
You change your racket, you have to be careful, you know, because at this level, it's so difficult to do it and be able to trust what you're using. And he did it to gain some extra oomph on the shots, and he got that a few months ago. Then he starts making some unforced errors, he said, and now he's back again. So, I mean, where would that leave your confidence in your ability to hit a reliable stroke? I mean, it's a tough situation he finds himself in.
And he talked about how he's basically been playing to varying degrees injured for the last couple of years, you know, the niggles just accumulating on him, and he said psychologically that has done me a lot of harm, and he just looks so jaded and so lost, didn't he? It was really tough. But Gigante is good news, but perhaps not for the Italian media. I don't think they can handle any more. Italy is full. No more tennis champions.
It's always a favourite moment of mine. You know, I found it tough, as you say, seeing Tsitsipas like that. But like when you just discover a player at a slam, like it's such a revelation. You know, it's such a nice moment. And look, I think there probably are some limitations on his game, but he's lovely to watch. He really is as a craftsman.
My dad watched him in qualifying, beating Elmer Moller last week. He sent me a text today saying, Gigante by name, Gigante by performance. Good stuff, Dad. Hamad Medjedovic beat Juan Manuel Cerundolo today. Now, I mention that because at the section of the draw that Hamad Medjedovic is in, this is what would have been known as the Taylor Fritz section, but of course Taylor Fritz is gone. Medjedovic now plays Altmaier, and it's basically all there for him, isn't it? If he can play some of the tennis that he was playing 18 months a couple of years ago, because he has been in a bit of wilderness. it's there for him to maybe reach a French Open quarter-final here.
And I got to meet him today after the match and talk to him about his progress and how maybe it hasn't happened as quickly as he thought it would, etc. And he's a very open guy, so that'll be another show you'll be able to listen to, another interview you'll be able to listen to. But he also said he's pumped, and I mean, I can understand it, because that is a good draw. He's got a great draw on paper to make further progress, and 2 straight sets wins. You know, this is a guy who nobody really would want to face, I think, because he's got power to burn, and he's a bit of a diesel. You know, he's one of those. He's like Stan Wawrinka physically in that way, barrel-chested, keeps on going.
Say it, David. Say it.
Agricultural.
He's in the sort of Holger Rune, Lorenzo Mazzetti section of the draw, isn't he? I think if he did reach a quarter-final, he'd face the winner of that match that hasn't actually been set up yet. I mean, Holger Rune is currently in a second set tiebreak with Emilio Nava, so let's not get ahead of ourselves.
And isn't Francis Tiafoe in there as well?
He is, yes.
Fourth round, I
he's
think,
just won
would be.
this evening.
Yeah, very impressive win, actually. Very, very comprehensive over Carreño Busta.
Nice to see Tiafoe doing well, isn't it? You know, because he's had a difficult year or two, really, and who knows, maybe he can have a run.
Yeah, winner of Medjedovic-Altmaier faces the winner of Tiafoe-Korda. So there you go. Tommy Paul did win, but took the scenic route. Had to come from 2 sets down to beat Martin Fucsovics.
And I was astonished he won that match. Fucsovics served for the match in the 4th set, kind of fell apart, but then Paul seemed to be having some issues physically in that final set. His leg didn't look right.
A lot of physical issues in the air.
Yeah, I think there's a concern there for Paul going on in this tournament.
He'll face Karen Khachanov in round 3. Will Tommy Paul, the winner of that, to face the winner of Alexei Popyrin against Nuno Borges. And as David hinted at there, his chat with Hamad Medjanovic is one of those that is going to be featured on our bonus episode, out later today or now, possibly, depending on when you're listening to this, for friends of the tennis podcast. We're calling it TTP Meet because it's no longer David loitering alone. It's all of us trying to get to know some of the interesting, exciting, relatively unknown players on the tour. David spoke to Mira Andreeva yesterday, an amazing chat. It's so great to listen to. We've obviously got the big Matt Meets Amanda interview, which has been waiting for a vehicle. Now we found one. We've branded it.
Rebranded it.
TTP Meets, the tennis podcast meets. I have had a chat with Victoria Mboko today, as I said, and is that it? Got another one?
Yeah, that's it. 4 lovely interviews.
Yes, 4. I said 4, didn't I?
Yeah.
4 lovely interviews coming your way for friends of the tennis podcast. We're excited. We found a vehicle for this stuff. Yeah. Okay. If you'd like to become a friend, of course, the link to do that is in our show notes. That's it for part 2. But do join us for part 3 because we will describe to you our moment of the day, and what a moment it was. Welcome back to part 3 of the tennis podcast, where we look ahead to tomorrow, Thursday's schedule. It's more round 2 action. Frankly, folks, I'm just going to cut to the chase here because the moment of the day today, Wednesday, day 4 of Roland Garros, was the moment that this schedule dropped. And we saw what, Matt Roberts?
We saw the names Corentin Moutet and Novak Djokovic on Lenglen. I was on my way to the loo.
He ran back.
Saw the notification and ran back to the desk and said, "Oh my God, have you guys seen this?" And you already had. I could have just gone to the loo.
It's 3rd on Lenglen.
Oh.
I mean, just if you don't understand the significance of this, Novak Djokovic would have wanted to be on Court Philippe Chatrier in a nice big cavernous stadium where everything is under his control. Instead, he's going to be on a rather smaller but beautiful stadium, which is much more intimate, which Corentin Moutet can turn into a zoo. And I know he can do this because I saw him do it a year ago. And he could do it against anybody in the world. And he's going to give it a go against Novak Djokovic.
And even MOUTET and the zoo aside, Novak Djokovic does not like Lenglen, and he's made that very clear. Now, I know it's been a while since he's played out there, but that is where he lost to Marco Cecchinato. That is where he lost to Dominic Thiem. Like, he hates that court. And look, I don't think it's anything personal to Novak Djokovic that they've stuck him out there. I think after what happened last night, if Gael Monfils is happy to play the night session, he plays the night session. Like, that is what the tournament wants. It's what Amazon Prime want. And, you know, he's the night session guy here for as long as he's in the tournament. And he plays Jack Draper. It's a decent match, provided Gael Monfils is, you know, mobile. And it's Yannick Sinner, the world number one in terms of the other men's matches, against Richard Gasquet, which is going to be his last ever French Open match. And it's not a particularly big deal to us, but it is a huge deal here at this tournament, the retirement of Richard Gasquet. And they no doubt have a huge ceremony planned, which wouldn't fit on any court other than Châtrier. So really, I think the moment that Gael Monfils won yesterday, Novak Djokovic's fate was sealed. And what a fate for us. What a gift.
Oh, it's such a gift. It is. I'm really looking forward to it.
Look, I think Djokovic will win, but I think he's going to have an awful time. A terrible time.
Yes, I'm sure too, but I also think that will then probably bring out the best in him in the end. Because he's got 20 years of evidence that you come for him, he'll give it you right back, and he'll give it the opponent in as well. But the thing, I mean, MOUTET is he's unlike anybody else that I've seen. I mean, he is going to throw in everything, every single trick, every drop shot, every underarm serve. He's going to start complaining about things that are ridiculous. He's going to get the crowd booing. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah. And from a purely tennis point of view, I personally am very excited to be able to watch Djokovic from those seats. Like, that is a tremendous privilege we're going to have tomorrow. Like, you know, we get to watch Djokovic in a lot of great seats, in a lot of great stadiums, but those seats down so low, like just watching a master, like, I'm looking forward to it for the aggro and for that.
Yeah, it feels a bit once in a lifetime tomorrow, doesn't it? A real special gift. Other tennis is happening tomorrow. Anne Lee plays Jessica Pegula first on Châtrier. Then it is, one presumes, Richard Gasquet's retirement match.
It's either that or a colossal upset.
Yeah, Gasquet against Sinner. Then it's Madison Keys against Katie Bolter. And then the night session match, as I've just told you, Gael Monfils against the 5th seed Jack Draper, who we bumped into earlier and was just lovely.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know him really well. I certainly don't. I've met him several times. Without fail, he comes up and he wants to just
shakes your hand, looks you in the eye.
Look you in the eyes, be polite. And here he is now. He's a big name in the top 5 in the world. Exactly the same.
Yeah.
And he didn't need to. He could have. We were having a conversation with other people. He could have just walked on by, but he didn't.
Said hello to Pam, didn't he?
Yeah. Shook our hands and asked us how we were. Lovely man.
Yeah. I mean, sort of millionaire tennis player aside, like, how many 22-year-old boys do you know that are doing that? Not many. Okay. Lenglen starts with Arthur Fils against Jeremy Munar. David has threatened to buy a tent and bring it to Lenglen
Honestly,
for tomorrow.
I'd go there now. What time is it? It's 10 o'clock at night. I would happily just camp.
It is.
That would be great content.
I used to do it at Wimbledon in 1995, 30 years ago. I'm happy to reprise.
It is followed by last year's junior girls champion Teresa Valentova against Coco Gauff. I'm not predicting an upset, but Valentova is talented. Like, that could be, you know, circle it. Like, she's someone to keep an eye on.
Tennis editor at The Athletic is predicting the upset.
Yes, James Hansen tweeted about how capable she is.
Oh, he's put it out into the world.
He put it
has he?
out.
Wow.
Yeah, so There's no running away from it now, James. I can't wait to watch her now, actually, because I haven't seen her play much.
That upset will precede Corentin Moutet against Novak Djokovic, and finally on Lenglen, Daria Kasatkina against the Frenchwoman Leolia Jean-Jean. Court Simone Mathieu tomorrow is where you find Mira Andreeva and Aisling Kruger. Then it's Alexander Zverev against Jesper de Jong. Paula Badosa is third up, and finally Jacob Fernley against Ugo Humbert. Court 14, Alex de Minaur against Alexander Bublik. Barbora Krejcikova trying to get back-to-back wins for the first time in possibly since Wimbledon, actually. Certainly in a long time, anyway, as she takes on Veronika Kudermetova. Then it's João Fonseca against Pierre-Hugues Herbert, and Victoria Azarenka and Sofia Kenin, the final match on 14 tomorrow. Jakub Mensik starts on court 7. Andrei Rublev is out there. Lois Boisson and Elsa Giacomo, two French women, to close things out on court 7. And court 6 is where you find Marketa Vondrousova, the former finalist, Ekaterina Alexandrova, the 20th seed, Kaboli against Arnaldi. That could be fun. Stylish matchup, that. And Denis Shapovalov is last up there. So my mouth is watering about tomorrow.
Belting day.
Yeah,
Can't
absolutely wait. Belting day of tennis. Folks, we have a mascot today. That mascot is Milo. This is one of our best ever mascot photos.
Yeah, even I know that.
Best ever. Milo is owned by Bob and Karen DeSantis. He's a 9-month-old red toy poodle. He was born in Queens, New York, and travels with us between our home in Manhattan and our home on Vashon Island, Washington, near Seattle. In New York, he loves to walk with us on the Upper West Side. What a dude. And loves to meet people and other dogs. I bet people love to meet him. We call him the Minister of Joy, thank you, Onstrabur, because he truly brings joy to everyone he meets. At our home on Vashon Island, he loves to run around our yard and chase squirrels and birds. And I don't know that I can do this photo justice, but all I can say is there's a touch of the Billie Jeans about it, and I'm a real sucker for a head tilt. And Milo is absolutely... I tell you what Milo's doing. He's smizing. He's staring into my soul. Yes, Milo is going in our newsletter and on our Instagram as well, and he is burning himself into my soul as we speak. Thank you very much, Milo, and Bob and Karen. Thank you to our mascots. Hello, Phoebe. Hello, Maisie. Hello, Roger. Hello to our top folks and executive producers, Greg, Chris, and Jeff. The Tennis Podcast is part of the Athletic Podcast Network. We're available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. And Matt, we have some shout-outs.
We have Coda Faha from Sydney.
All right, Coda.
Hello, Coda.
Coda says, almost like Robert Farah. All the same letters, just not in the right order.
Thank you, Coda. That is really helpful.
And Coda sat next to Daria Kasatkina's girlfriend Natalia at the US Open last year during a Kasatkina match, and says, too afraid to say hello, but I did want to make the vlog.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
So
I know
that
her
was
from
nice
the figure
background.
skating world, Natalia.
Yes.
Great figure skater. Well, that's a great claim to fame, Coda.
Yeah.
In fact, we love a niche tangential claim to fame. Great stuff. Thank you very much.
We've also got Brona Staunton from Dublin.
We know Brona. Hello, Brona.
And Vicky has actually done some research for us because she knows we're always scrambling around for an Irish tennis player.
Yes.
And Vicky has come up with Lena Rice, the only Irish woman to win Wimbledon in 1890.
Oh, this is splendid work.
So I think we can be forgiven for not knowing that, although Robert McNichol, Wimbledon historian, would expect better of me. But yes, thank you, Vicky, for that excellent bit of research.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Brona, for your enduring and continued support.
And finally, we have Emily from Chicago, Illinois.
Right,
Hello, Emily.
Home of the Bears, Chicago.
And the bulls.
Yeah.
And I'm sure other animals.
And Emily says, I was playing the podcast out loud from my iPhone one night while my partner John and I were falling asleep, then turned it off, and John, half asleep, said, turn the tennis music back on. So the pod is now tennis music to us.
I love that. Yeah, that's really great. Thank you. Like Emily Appleton, who I saw was in the doubles today.
Very well done.
British player. Haven't seen her name in many years, but she's popped up on the doubles schedule today.
Excellent.
Thank you, Emily. We will be back with more tennis music tomorrow. Thank you for listening. We'll speak to you then.